Good morning. This is the Friday Fireside, and I am thrilled to be here with Shelley Stansfield, who is founder, and we're going to have to figure out what this title means, Director of Special Ops at Centriply, who is, by the way, the sponsor of the Friday Fireside and a sponsor of the upcoming TVOT in San Francisco in October. So, Shelley, how are you?
Rick, it's delightful to be here.
I told you before we got started, and I do need to tell the audience that the Friday Fireside is the first time that my family actually knows what I do for a living, because my job on the Friday Fireside is to talk about television, which is exactly the same thing I do all the time at home anyway. So they said, oh, that's what you do. So yeah, that's what I do. So speaking of what you do, we're going to get to what Centriply does in a minute, but Shelley, what is a director of special ops?
It is someone who ends up doing whatever needs to be done.
We used to call that chief cook and bottle washer.
Yes.
Okay. So special ops is whatever needs to get done. Okay. Having now clarified that, tell us a little bit, what is it that Centriply does? And we're going to get into more detail about that, but just broadly, what is Centriply?
So we're an independent media agency that specializes in advanced audience-driven TV campaigns. So that means that advertisers can use the same audiences that they're using on their digital campaigns now to find those audiences on linear TV. And we have a tech platform that enables traditional TV to really complement and compete effectively with all the other digital channels that are out there. And we're transforming how TV ads are bought and sold throughout the TV industry. And we don't bring in extra investment. It easily integrates into existing workflows, and it maximizes the value of the existing inventory without changing it. It's better targeting for the buyer, and it's premium pricing for the seller. And it enables us to do really impression-based buying for campaigns and extending the reach throughout all the different channels that you want to try for any campaign that you're doing.
Okay, so let's use an example. If Toyota, who, by the way, advertises a lot on television, but let's assume for a moment that they have determined that they're going to use CTV and other digital platforms to identify gray hair, bearded truck owners. How would you work with Toyota, or do you work more with the folks who have the inventory to go get Toyota to bring them over, and to how would that work?
Our sweet spot is working with large agencies and mature brands that are competing in very complex marketplaces, because they collect a lot of data, they have many different messages, and they break up their audiences through several different layers of the marketing funnel. So we will work with a Claritas to figure out what a good audience segment is. Or sometimes a client will come with their own audience already prepared. And we can match those IDs, because we can go down to the household level, very much like CTV, in that we can match that and the media that's available in that household, in that location. So we will build that up, and then we'll review all the different media options, and we have different factors that we can apply to the programming, to the day parts, and create and compare how much value each piece of inventory has for that specific planning team. Usually, often we will work with the brand themselves if they're that sophisticated, but the advanced teams in the agencies are the ones that tend to use us the most.
Okay, so if my goal at Toyota is to sell Tacoma pickup trucks, I've got a nut I've got to hit. I've got to get to 500,000 units by September, right? And I don't particularly care if I sell them to target A or target B. I just need to sell them. I need to get that message in front. If you have the ability to let me get more of target A efficiently and effectively and move them along rather than opening up a second strategy to target B, then that makes sense for me operationally. It's probably going to end up being the same actual creative on the screen. The target A creative is, old bearded guys driving pickup trucks through the farm, and the target B creative is younger people driving pickup trucks through the city, for example, right? So if all I want to do is sell pickup trucks, you have the ability to let me get more value from the targeting and the creative that I have in hand.
You can layer all the different TV options. So you can have a national campaign, and then you can have a local campaign that fills in, because TV consumption is different. It's different in the country than it is in the city. It's different in the suburbs than it is in, what do they call the exurbs now? And we can put it in different programming. We can do an A/B test. We can do just slightly different creative. You can you can match and have a goal of certain frequency with the localized effort that would take a lot more money if it was trying to get the same amount of impressions on a national level. Like if someone in Atlanta is only seeing it 3 times, but someone in Houston sees it 10, we can help even that out. And that then gives you that option to get more impressions or more times in front of certain audiences.
Okay, and we know that in the world of frequency, there is an issue that, sometimes it's just too much. It actually starts pushing the consumer away. My God, I've seen that spot 43 dozen times. I don't need to see it again. So evening that stuff out is important. Okay, you mentioned Claritas. You did something, you have a study that you did that actually tracked sales lift with Claritas numbers of 300% increase in sales.
Oh, thanks for asking.
Excuse me. Huh? How did you do that, Shelley?
It was a client that was familiar with how to use specific audiences. So we went to Claritas, and I think it was outdoorsy sports enthusiasts. And we were in Q4 of last year, and they had very specific, I think it was 857 zip codes that they knew either they had previous purchasers for, or they had interest, or they had various, the client had various information about those areas that would indicate there was high interest. So we found the Claritas segment, we found the areas of high interest, and then they had 3 different kinds of creative. So we tracked that very closely. And then when Q4 was done, we knew exactly how many impressions went into those households, and we matched it up with the Claritas segment and LiveRamp. It gets translated and all PII compliant. And we could do a control group, very similar in size, versus the exposed group, and the results were astounding. And they loved it. They were thrilled. And I don't think it, gosh, for me, it's the epitome of optimism in a pandemic to be able to sell seasonal tickets or seasonal passes when there's nothing else going on. So we were thrilled. It was great.
Okay, that's all right. So what is the most important thing that Centriply brings to, let's talk first about a brand. What is the most important thing that a brand should know that Centriply can do for them?
Is get their message on TV in front of the same audience as their digital campaigns. Because to have that triple effect of a digital and audio and TV is, it's the triple whammy to be able to get their message in front of the right audience.
In the movie business, there was a phrase called four-walling, which essentially meant anywhere you turned, there was the spot. That was usually about a movie premiere, and it usually happened on Wednesday through Friday, right?
That's exactly right.
But so you're basically saying it is a similar kind of a thing. You can add another wall so that wherever that target audience turns, they're going to get that same message.
Right. And it's extremely effective. And by comparing the sales to the impressions delivered, you can really validate that budget. Suddenly they're looking at ROI so quickly and so easily for a certain amount of time. When we do a transactional study down at the bottom of the funnel, now we can also do the attribution, which makes them feel so much more comfortable in a brand awareness situation,
right?
Which is usually a longer time frame and kind of a broader message. We've done several with partners of ours to increase brand awareness. And then you can even include mid-funnel foot traffic and web traffic measurement so that they feel like they can really measure how many TV impressions does it take to move the needle. And because we're so precise at it, they can really tell.
Okay, so now that applies to brands who are buying and also then their agencies who are buying. Let's flip it around. What's the critical piece to the media companies, owners of the inventory, and to their sales agents? What really sings to them?
Speed. Speed has recently been emphasized to us because we're developing the technology for the sell side too, that they have to be able to respond so quickly. The other part is to look at that inventory without actually changing it and pulling it in from any marketplace that they are responsible for selling. They want to get to sellout rate. As fast as I can get there, the better. And they're looking for showing the premium value of that spot for that audience, and we can do that. And by combining all the different marketplaces and being able to package it all either at a CPM goal or at an audience goal, whether you're packaging it for an audience, it can be done both ways. And the salespeople love that.
So the media folks can, by delivering against the critical points, they can increase the value of the ad to the buyer on the other side. They can respond faster to the request for information or the request for a proposal to get to that buyer.
Right.
They can actually have their inventory make more money for them than they otherwise would, right?
Right. We're not in a race to the bottom. We're not trying to aggregate to a $5 CPM. That's right. not what we're doing at all. We're taking the extra information and by a factor of sometimes 5, giving it that much value for a specific brand, and then they can sell it for the right amount.
Does that actually mean that if I wasn't using Centriply, I might settle for a $5 CPM for a given batch of inventory, and you can get me 20? Are we actually talking about that?
We're getting there. We're definitely getting there. Yeah. And it also gives the salespeople more clients to go and present to, because they get their inventory back. I mean, if I have 100 spots that are great for a shoe brand that appeals to women who are 18 to 24, live in a certain area, and spend $50 or more a month on shoes, I have a very specific pool of inventory that's appropriate for them. Then the seller can get back that other inventory that maybe would be appropriate for someone else. And you can reapply other factors that would make that just as valuable.
All right. But that sounds like a lot of work for the folks on the sales side.
Because of the way the inventory comes in and gets filtered, and the factors applied, it can be sorted quickly. So you're getting an assistant planner or an assistant to the salesperson who in 5 clicks can say, you have 200 lines of inventory at $8 CPM, and we're at 2 weeks out, so you've got 30% chance of selling it. What do you want to sell it at? And that's a business decision then that the salespeople can make, but the assistant is kind of pulling it together fast, because it's just click, click, click. And with all of the kind of the guardrails in place, they can create the packages quickly so that it can go off to the other person who may find that inventory valuable.
All right. Now, in terms of turnaround, and we have this conversation over time, once every 4 years, and certainly once every 2 years, something happens called October, which is when all the rules change leading up to the first Tuesday in November.
Right.
Nobody's got 2 weeks to turn something around then. The politicians folks call up and say, I need that spot tonight. How can you help with that bit of insanity? Because we actually started in political. We were a political shop for almost 25 years. Knowing where to get on and more importantly, where to get off. It's important when they stick their foot in their mouth, you've got to get their spots off the air. Well, okay, there you go. It's the politician who just bought 2 days worth of stuff, and he just said something on the stump, and the party said, Yeah,
yes.
Get it.
Come on, move along. Yeah.
How? Okay. Get it off, because you know exactly where it is.
We know where it is. We know exactly what is planned for the next few days. And because you can track, I mean, we can physically process $1 million an hour of spots easily. Wow. And it's a small staff, it's not big, but being able to sift through and filter and prioritize and have it all linked back to who is selling that and what's their phone number. That isn't a button. That's a phone call. Like, you got to get me off the air. And because you have the connections with the people who are running the stations and running the systems, that actually can happen. And
if the folks are doing it right, this phone has the fellow who has to get the spot off the air, and this phone has the guy who said, you know what, I just got 15 spots cleared for tomorrow night. Right.
Exactly. It's somebody's bonanza at that point. But it's hair on fire for a year. It just is crazy. It's fast forward advertising at its most crazy.
Hair on fire makes a lot of sense. Well, all right. Now, on that point, we are about out of time. But thank you very much.
My pleasure. I can talk about this stuff all day too.
Well, see that? Now your family knows what you do for a living.
Yes.
You talk about television. Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you for being a sponsor of the Friday Fireside, and absolutely thank you for being a sponsor for the upcoming TV of Tomorrow, which is in San Francisco on October 12th and 13th, I think.
Yes, I think
More details will be coming out on what all that is. So Shelley Stansfield, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Rick. It's been a pleasure.
And I will say to my friends, as I always do when we sign off, just be nice.